Mary Jane Brett. So you'll say I want Mary Jane. I'm gonna give these to her so she can get it. Okay. Okay, maybe it's not coming. Okay, good. I mean, not good, but yeah.
Okay, everybody, I have 1 o'clock and I promised both our guests and our commissioners that I would keep these meetings. I would start on time, we would end on time. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. So officially, I'd like to call the 7th meeting of the Women's Commission to order. And I want to thank all of our guests and our hosts who are here for allowing us to be here in Jonesboro today. So I'll come back to you, Dr. Jones Branch. I met many of you. I got a chance to talk to many of you. I did not, I will admit, get around to everyone. So if I didn't get a chance to personally introduce myself, I'm Allison Williams. I'm the chair of the Arkansas Women's Commission. I'm also the chief of staff to Governor Hutchinson, who commissioned this commission back in February. And we'll have a report due to him and the legislature on December 1st. So your participation in this meeting today is both meaningful and important as we put this work together. So I mentioned I want to thank our host, Dr. Sharice Jones Branch, who is our host commissioner today. And I want to thank the really, really wonderful team here at the Delta Center for Economic Development. Julie, Maria, have just been really wonderful. And in absentia, I want to thank Andrea Allen, who's a dear, dear friend of mine. I want to take a point of privilege, personal privilege, to thank her for welcoming us into this space, even though she cannot be here today. So I want to remind our guests and the participants that this meeting is open to the public. So you'll see on screen, Jeremy, our wonderful media tech and great producer, is back there. He's going to make us look and sound good. And but this meeting is open to the public. And so we want to make these meetings as accessible as possible. And it is being live streamed via YouTube, and it will be archived on our website after this meeting. So part of that means that we need to kind of help the tech side of things. If you are speaking, I just ask that you wait for the mic to be delivered to you so that we can be sure to capture your comments the way that you intend them to be captured. And he's not here, but I think he's going to be joining us later. One of our commissioners, and we also still have him listed as Fayetteville, which I think is kind of funny. But we're fixed up for the next meeting. But Dr. Todd Shields, for those of you who are here, obviously know that he was recently appointed chancellor to Arkansas State University. And we're very proud of that. We're very proud of him as a friend and as a commissioner. So we'll welcome him later. But Dr. Jones Branch, would you like to say any words of welcome on behalf of Arkansas State?
I'll keep this brief. Just good afternoon to all of you. I'm just thrilled that you're here. Thank you for accepting our invitation. The work we're doing on this commission is really, really important, and I'm just thrilled that you have an opportunity today to be witness to that. So thank you again for coming.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get down to business. For those of you in the room who are here for the focus group and as part of the community, we're going to get through about 15 minutes of committee business, and then we'll move into the program. So the draft minutes from our last meeting, commissioners, were sent to you over the weekend. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adopt those minutes from our last meeting on August 17th. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you very much. Without objection, the minutes from the August 17th meeting are adopted. Do our commissioners have any old business that they'd like to bring up? All right. And so at this time, I'd like to invite representatives from each of our subcommittees to update us on their work since our last meeting. And we'll start with you, Dr. Jones Branch, and the Subcommittee on Research and Writing.
Okay, thank you. In the absence of my co-chair, Chancellor Shields, here are the updates from the Research and Writing Committee. The statewide survey has been edited. We've cut it down to about 12 minutes, and we expect the calls to begin in the next week to 10 days. The Women's Foundation 2018 report has been updated, and the newest version of the 2022 American Community Survey data and comparisons between previous findings and the current findings have been made. We expect to have some data from the governor's office regarding women in education, employment, and training opportunities in Arkansas, but we're still waiting on this data and the responses. We have received a draft report from the subcommittees, and we'll start weaving them all into a full report. Once we receive all of them, they're due to us by October 1st, but you can send us drafts and we can see where they're going and figure out how to best work them into a single report. We do have a draft outline of the final version of the report. We started working on parts of the final report. And of course, some of these sections are easier than others. So for example, it's very easy to talk about the history of the women's commissions in Arkansas and why this is important at this particular time in our history. We'll send out a draft of the final report once we have subcommittee reports, and we are again going to successfully put them into one report, which we will present in November. And finally, in presenting the final report to the governor, we are inquiring about the A-State office space in downtown Little Rock near the Capitol for an event that the Women's Foundation of Arkansas will host on that same day that we release the commission's report, and there will be more on that forthcoming.
Wonderful. Thank you for that report. I'm going to now invite Dr. White-Lloyd to give the report on the Subcommittee on Barriers to Entry and Retention.
Well, I understand that Dr. Childers did a great job last month representing our committee. I was on Zoom and it was impressive, so I'm following her. So as you know, we have our report in and have done a revision and resubmitted, so it is in. We have only one thing that has been added since last month, and we thought it was important enough for at least to be considered for the final report. But it's on the Arkansas College Campus Hunger Study, and we had introduced that topic in June, which was a sidebar really for what our mission was, but we thought it was important. And in looking at this study, there were over 4,000 Arkansans that answered this about hunger. And of course, one of our commission members, Kathy Webb, is involved with this. So of those, 41% of our students, our high school and college students, stated that they often could not afford to eat during a week. And so I think that was pretty amazing for us. And there's a lot of other statistics and we have some recommendations, but I think one of the things that was most compelling to me, because we can all say that there's food, there's places to go. One of the things that the students had to say is they were too embarrassed to go where you would get food where others could see them on campus. So just one of the, I think, compelling recommendations that wouldn't take that much is to combine it where other student services were so that they wouldn't stand out going into a place that would mean they were low income or they were hungry. So there's several other things, but I think some of that is compelling that as we worry about our students and being able to graduate from college, that some are struggling to even eat for the week. So that's really all that we have new from our report from last month. Thank you.
Well,
Sorry, I'm late.
I think you're allowed. I think you're allowed. Well, Dr. Jones Branch has done a great job representing A-State thus far, and the Research and Writing Committee. But I do, for those of you who don't know, or if you're online, Chancellor Todd Shields now, Chancellor of Arkansas State University. Dr. Shields, thanks for being here. Did you want to add any words of welcome to folks today?
Just thank you for being here. Really glad to host it when Teresa and I heard that it was in September that we were hosting. We were really glad that it was going to be here.
Good.
We're glad you're here.
Good, thank you. So we're going to move on to the impacts of COVID-19 subcommittee, and I'm going to invite Melly Bridewell, who's online with us, to give that report. Melly?
Thank you, and I apologize for not being there. I was planning on being there, but it's been quite a few weeks with our hospitals, so kind of crammed with that. So we are starting to put together, hopefully we will have our report pretty much completed and to everyone. The COVID committee, I guess, unlike some of them, I mean, we kind of have started here and morphed because COVID impacted so many different areas. And so we really tried to sit there and focus. So some of the stuff we looked at are, care responsibilities, mental health was a big deal. We still are looking at the women's health care. While we've had speakers, and we've had some great speakers, even at the federal level, come talk to us, there are some questions about, as OB services start to close, we want to look at those numbers as well before we really start looking at, what policies and solutions we could look at. So that's been a big area for us recently. And then, of course, employment and COVID, which really has to do, kind of overlaps with the childcare issues that we're finding, because of COVID. So we are getting there. I'm feeling really good about what we've done, and especially have had a lot of good feedback from a lot of good speakers. So that's where we are.
Thank you, Melly. And then last, I want to go to Marie Holder to give the report on family caregiving.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you. We are working hard on the family caregiving. We've been meeting with a lot of child care facilities around the state and had wonderful feedback from them, and hope to craft some great recommendations and policy, both for the legislative branch and for private sector as well. So it's going really well. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. So thank you, commissioners and committee chairs, for those reports. I did want to give just a few updates from me as the chair. I mentioned last month that Aprilla, who many of you have also met, was pulling together the recommendations that have come from our focus group. So we're getting those recommendations based on the work that committees are doing, but then also the work from the community engagement meetings like this. And so she's been pulling those together. And so commissioners, those are in a document at your seat. They will be shared with our virtual participants, and then they are saved in our Google Docs folder if you want to look at those. So once we have the recommendations from the subcommittees via your reports, we'll quickly identify any recommendations that may deserve additional consideration. So if we see something that has come through these focus groups, but we don't see it addressed yet in the committee reports, we'll make sure that that's intentional. The subcommittee may disagree that it needs to be added, but we just want to be clear that we've thought about those and that we're intentional about those things that we exclude, including the things that we do include. And then as Dr. Jones Branch kind of referenced, over the next few months, I'll be working with them on the research and writing committee to deconflict those proposed recommendations and ensure that if there are any recommendations not yet vetted by a committee, that we make sure you see those. And I just want to remind folks, our goal on these committee action and recommendations or the committee recommendations is that they are actionable. And so we want to be very clear in who we envisage is responsible for those, and be clear that and use language that is clear about our intention for that. So as you think about your recommendations, obviously I want you to consider who in the community that you live in or in the realm of the subject that you're looking at, that you think about who can take that up. And then just a little bit of a point of pride. Jeremy pointed this out to me the other day. So I'm very excited that we have reached over 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel. So we make a difference in this community here by you being here today, but also for the folks that join us online every month. I think our guest last month on the Federal Reserve Board governor made a lot of impact. So our new YouTube channel actually is not a bunch of just letters and jumbled numbers. We are actually youtube.com with the Arkansas Women's Commission as a follower. So we've reached over 100 subscribers. That's due to the great work and the folks in the community. So please feel free to join us in the future there. We're very proud of that. And then lastly, I just want to mention that our next meeting of the commission will be in Magnolia. South Arkansas University will host us there, as will our Commissioner Nigel White. That meeting is scheduled for October 17th, and further details are coming as we finalize the location and time. Generally, though, commissioners will stick with the same schedule. I think we're going to get together a little earlier for lunch because they're going to have us off campus, but a 1 o'clock start time for the actual meeting. And with that, we are finished with commission business, and I'm delighted to introduce our speaker this afternoon. Ruth Ann Hill, who is in the audience, is the Executive Director of the Arkansas Single Parent Scholarship Fund. She has been a leader in the Arkansas nonprofit community for over 20 years, 30 years, made you a little younger. Over 30 years, serving simultaneously as the Executive Director and the Chief Development Officer for 24 of those years. She will celebrate 10 years as Executive Director of the Arkansas Single Parent Scholarship Fund on October 1st. Congratulations. She holds a master's and bachelor's degrees from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville. She is a graduate of Leadership Springdale and Leadership Benton County, and an active volunteer in many social justice organizations and causes. Ms. Hill has been honored as Advocate of the Year by the Northwest Arkansas School Counselors Association, Boss of the Year, that's a pretty good one, by the Arkansas Volunteer Coordinators Association, and has twice been named as a finalist for the Nonprofit Executive of the Year by Arkansas Business. She is a member of the Grant Professionals Association, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, and Springdale Rotary. She has raised 2 daughters as a single mom. I saw that in your presentation. I'm excited to hear more about that. And now spends her free time traveling to national parks or is in the yard tending to her various gardens. Ruth Ann, thank you so much for being here today. I welcome you to the podium.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and talk to you all. And I've met a few of you as we've gone along and through lunch. Once I got here, campuses always are intimidating, aren't they? When you don't know them. Shall I switch mics? Okay. And that Boss of the Year part, not everybody agrees with that. But I think the majority do. Okay, just turn this one off. You're the tech wizard. So, all right. How's that? Oh, that's pretty good. Okay. All right. I'm excited to be here. He's going to start some PowerPoint slides for me. And I want to thank you for the invitation. And as I was meeting a few of y'all, I was thinking, wow, I think I'm going to tell them a lot that they already know. And so if I do that, just know, I mean, we all need to reinforce those things. So it's like those stats I'm going to share about where Arkansas stands in the nation educationally. Y'all know those. They're depressing. We need to look at them every day and be depressed and be motivated to try to fix things. Do I have a clicker, or do I just say, okay, all right, well, let's get rolling then. You ought to get to know something about your presenter. So the first thing that I'd like to introduce you to are my parents. Dr. Robinette, PhD in chemistry, not my subject. Okay, PhD in chemistry. Was the son of a school teacher and a university biology professor. Kind of college was in his path, wasn't it? He probably grew up knowing that he'd go to college one day and that somehow or another it would all work out. My mother, very different story. Leslie, Arkansas, Searcy County, if you're aware of it. She grew up very, very poor. I mean, it was a long time ago. But still, when the wood stove heats the house and cooks the meals and the bathroom is an outhouse outside, there's not a lot of money. My grandmother cleaned houses for people and sewed for people and so on. My mom was a first generation college student. She got out of Leslie and got her way to Arkansas State Teachers College, for those of y'all old enough to remember that. And Hussey married her chemistry lab instructor. But do you see? Do you see how that impacted my path? That impacted my path because Dad was only 2 years older than her. But it impacted my path because the 4 of us siblings in my generation grew up knowing we'd go to school. It also helped that tuition was $200 a semester. How did we ever afford that? I know. And that was in the 70s. It's not total ancient history, but that was mid 70s. And so we're looking at a whole different world now. And I'm reminded all the time about how Alan and Ruby's path and their experience in school, they're speaking the language called college, impacted all of us. That makes such a huge difference. And we see that every day in the students that we work with. Okay, next slide, please. Allison mentioned that I raised wait, go back one, please. Yeah. Allison mentioned that I raised 2 daughters. I did. I took what Alan and Ruby gave me and I passed it on to them. And now one of these little girls is a lawyer in the Justice Department in DC, and the other has an MBA and is running a marketing firm out of her house. She's building her own company. That we had that in our path. Too many of the people we work with and too many people across the state don't have that in their path. And that's a lot where we come in. Now, that bit about playing in the yard, next slide, please. That's because I've raised my kids and I have such a great staff that when I'm not working, I can be out in the yard. And my neighbors would probably tell you this is true about me. That's kind of the side of me that they usually see. But I like that. So you get to know a little bit about your presenter. That makes it more interesting, I think, and I'm not just a talking head then. So I wanted to share that with you. I also want to introduce you to my colleague, Shayla Creekmore, who's here. She's our program manager here in Northeast Arkansas and works directly with the students in the schools and community partners and so on to not only help our single parents get into school, but help them stay there through graduation and into professional employment. All right, next slide, please. So these are the things that you already know about Arkansas. This is and some of these still surprised me. I saw a couple of new ones. Are you all familiar with the Aspire Arkansas report that Arkansas Community Foundation put out? Fabulous info. And if you ever write grants, boy, that's the place to go. But fabulous. And that's where a lot of this came from. So adults in Arkansas with high school degree, 87. We're 44th. Why does Arkansas cheer when we're not 49th or 50th? Okay, we're 44th in high school graduation. But then look at that. Adults with a bachelor's degree or higher, 49th. But important here, look at the difference. 33 and 34% in Northwest Arkansas and Pulaski. 13% when I just averaged the counties along the river down the south. Is it any secret or surprise then where the economic centers of the state are? You've got to have an employment base. Okay. The median household income, if you're making today more than $47,597, you're in the upper half of Arkansas. And yeah, it does say median, not average. So you are in the upper half of the employment circle in Arkansas. That's way too low. That's way too low. We know that. 17% of Arkansans living in poverty and almost 1/4 of our children. So that has to change. Y'all know these stats, but the one that kicked me in the teeth the other day was this last one. The number of adults pursuing further education in Arkansas, 3.2%. So only I think it's about 17% of Arkansans have on average. So you've got your 33 and 34% in Pulaski, your 13% along the river. I think it was around 17% of Arkansans have a bachelor's degree or higher, 6% that have a professional degree, but only 3.2% are attempting higher education. And that number is going down, not up. And we know a lot of that's to do with the pandemic. They're exhausted. We're exhausted. You're exhausted. Your brains are fried. Everybody's tired. Our numbers have gone down. College enrollments in almost every campus have gone down. But there's got to be something that turns the tide, because that stat is pre-pandemic. That's not because of the pandemic. Okay. Next slide, please. And yes, right here, if you could do the video. What I want to do right now is share a video of one of our local students. And how many of y'all are from here at this campus? Oh, I hope you know this woman. I hope you know her, and I hope you just love her as much as we do. But let me set the stage a little bit. It's just about a 1-minute video. where she's going to talk about the difference this program and her going to college made in her life, and that second generation effect of what she's already seeing in her children. And don't we just love that? So just take a minute and let's watch this.
Being a recipient of the single parent scholarship, it shows me that there's still people out there that care. There's still people out there that's willing to help. Growing up in a single parent home had a lot to do with me fearing ever being single, didn't want to be single. My mom and my father went through a very bitter divorce. It was affecting me and my identical twin sister really, really bad. And unfortunately, we were placed in special education classes, which means that we were not prepared for college life. I was very excited because I knew that it would help me with my kids, with my expenses. I mean, I only had a part-time work-study job, and that's the whole 5 years I've been here. I've never worked full-time throughout my school career. My girls seeing me experience this, I've tried to make sure I exemplify strength, hard work, and being able to be confident while doing those things. My babies right now, we have conversations, and sometimes when they're just talking amongst each other, I hear one of them say, I'm gonna go to college, and oh my God, that just does something to me, because I know that they never would have discussed that had they not watched their mom model that behavior. It's really influenced my decision on basically when I graduate with my master's, I want to start giving back and being a part of the Single Parent Scholarship Fund.
How many of y'all know Sheila? You know Sheila? She's so wonderful and so precious. And you see what she's doing to her family. Remember back at the start, what Alan and Ruby gave me? Nobody gave Sheila, but Sheila, but she's given that to her daughters. She's taken that family by coming to school and graduating. She now works for Jonesboro Public Schools, by the way. And she has lifted her family off their old path and place them squarely on a new one. That's the power of what y'all do in post-secondary education. And what we do and other agencies and organizations that come together to support these people. Now, when Allison asked me to talk about the challenges faced by people, the people that we serve, the first thing that came to mind is, how long do you have? Because we're going to be talking about, I mean, it's everything. It's everything. And so I was trying to separate it out into, I love what Allison, what you said about being actionable. You know, what is actionable and what is our role to play as a nonprofit versus a university's role to play versus state government's role to play, and so on. We could debate those things in a big old 3 or 4 day retreat somewhere. And boy, if you do that, I want to be at the table. Okay. So the first thing I thought of was this cartoon. Have you seen it before? I love this. I went searching for it over the weekend because this is what came to mind immediately. And it's not and you have to think beyond just the people represented there. It's just not an older white man on the easy path. There's a lot of privileges, reference my path again, reference your own path, privileges that we had that made our course easier, possibly. And then you may have had even more obstacles in your way as the woman on the right. Now, the fact that that's a Black or brown woman, that's important to me because even women in poverty, white women in poverty, are going to have a lot of barriers. My personal belief, Black and brown women in poverty are having all of those plus more. You look at Sheila's path, she had all kinds of obstacles in her way that she had to overcome. Some of those culturally, I can identify with and understand as a white woman. Some of them I can't. I need to be educated on those. But the first thing that Allison, the challenge she gave me, I was like, wow, this is 20 minutes. Okay, so it's going to be a lot of obstacles. So we're going to talk about things that we do and then things that I hope state government can do, others can do, so that we impact together and come into helping these people get through college, into family supporting wages, raise that family out of poverty, and be successful and feel like they belong in a professional career path. Next slide, please. Okay, so the challenges are everywhere. So academic background, let's tackle that one first. It's no surprise to anybody in this room that schools in Lee County, public schools in Lee County, Phillips County, certain counties, Searcy County, doesn't have to be in the Delta, but that probably is not an equivalent education to somebody going to school in, say, Bentonville. Okay, and so you've got that academic background. Sheila said that she and her sister were not at all prepared for college. We can't second guess. We can't go back and second guess the person who put them into special ed classes, because maybe that was absolutely what was needed. But we also got a hint that there was a lot of trauma there. She seemed to choke up to me when she talked about her parents' bitter divorce, even though it's in the past. So we do know that Black and brown children get put into special classes more. They're more likely to be identified as behavior problems when the underlying cause might be ADHD. There are a lot of things at play here. So academic background and just your feeling about school, your feeling about tests and so on, all that anxiety, feeling like you don't belong on campus and everybody can tell. Those kinds of things that all, it all affects your feelings about school and what you think you are able to accomplish in school. Okay. Income and expenses. Income plays a big part of this. Our single parents, I don't have an average salary statewide, but the ones that get to me is the huge number of parents we serve that are right now raising children making $10,000 to $15,000 a year. How do you do that? How do you do that? And how, as a mom or a dad, how do you say, we're already struggling, we're already hungry, you already don't have the shoes that fit or the clothes that other kids have or whatever, but you know what? Let me take a few $1,000s out of this every year and spend it on myself to go to school, when all of this other stuff is already happening. You see why with our scholarship checks, I will say, I don't care if they use it for Christmas presents, because what mama would quit school and get another part-time job and give up on her dreams in order to make Christmas happen for her little ones, or a birthday happen for her little ones, or to do something, you know what I'm saying? So we've got to, that's where we say our scholarship checks go right to the student. Some people have a problem with that. And they're like, well, what if they go to the liquor store? Well, they don't. Well, what if they go to the casinos? They aren't. I'll show you in a minute how they're spending their money. We know. And who knows best what financial barrier needs to be removed in order for that mom or dad to stay in school. Okay, good, please. All right. These are real stats. I'll let you skim them. These are real stats from various surveys over time of our own students. So the 92% of recipients from 25 to 35 years old, that surprises people. Talked at a Rotary one time and the guy so moved, he wrote a $500 check, a spontaneous $500 check. And on the memo line, he wrote Unwed Mothers Fund. I was like, no, we're not the high school girls that had babies organization. We will be if that's what helps them be in school. But most of our students are 25 to 35 years old. And look at the incidence of abuse, the not getting child support. We do 250% of federal poverty level, but most of our students are far below that. But if we look at somebody at say 200 to 250% of the federal poverty level, and they need this certification to get promoted at work, we're all over that. That's, you bet, we're going to help. We're going to help her or him. And our students last year, 3.09 GPA, we require a 2.0 to stay in the program. A lot of people, even our volunteers were saying, oh, that's too low. We need to require a 2.5. We need to require a 3. You know what? We're not their mom. We're not their parents. If the university requires a 2.0 to graduate, then that's what we require. Because why would we ask more than the institution themselves? So a 3.09, that's actually kind of down on an average. Next slide, please. Okay, pandemic effect, just a few stats that really stood out here. When we surveyed them in April of the pandemic, 91% had said they had changes in child. We expected this to be to the moon in child school or daycare. I was kind of surprised it was only 91% because we know they're all parents. But so we must have had some there with like family babysitters or neighbors or something like that. But 69% who were working while in school had lost their job or had their hours severely cut. And 72% had lost household income. Well, how can more people lose income than lost jobs? Because the ex lost his job, so child support isn't coming in. The parents maybe were helping with rent, but now it can't come in, and so on. But the biggest thing here, and this goes right back to your about on-campus food banks, and yes, 91% said if we could give them more money. What's the biggest thing you need money for? Food. Food. We need groceries. Cause you know what? Kids getting free breakfast and lunch at school weren't. Y'all know that. They're at home. And what do bored kids do? All day long, don't they? They want to eat all day long. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what we did, because of our fabulous donors who said, forget the grant contracts, use your money any way you need to use it to help your people. Our first goal, we've got to keep them in school. And so we did this survey, we got their info. Look at what they spent their money on. Food, utilities, rent are your biggies, and gas for the car. We had big questions about, could we provide internet, home internet to people? We couldn't do that, but boy, you at the universities, when you set up those nets where, I mean, you could sit in your car in a parking lot with kids napping or playing or whatever behind you and finish something and finish your assignment and turn it in or log in for a class that's virtual or whatever. We also bought 62 laptops because when the schools loaned out all they could and everybody went home, we had 62 students we identified in the state that had nothing at home. They were always working in a computer lab at the college. So no bells and whistles. Nobody can be a gamer on our laptops. We got them the basics to keep them in school. And 682 students we had that semester, every one of them finished the semester. We were like, so they got their regular scholarship, which is $1,200 for a full-time student. Plus everybody got an extra $250 thanks to our donors. And not 250, it might have been a little, do you remember? I was a little, I think it was more than that. And 62 of them got laptops shipped to their home. And because that beautiful 2-week spring break that was carved in there got us enough time to get the laptops to them and everybody get it set up so they could meet the first day of class. We were happy dancing all over the state that they all finished that semester. Next slide, please. Here's where they were last year. So that was 2020 and the start of the pandemic. Here's where our students were last year. I thought you might find this interesting. You're like, what? Nobody in Northwest, nobody in that West Central. That we have sister affiliates. They are separately incorporated. Northwest Arkansas is 4 counties, Polk and Sevier County, Marion, White, Chico, Jefferson. We call ourselves within our regions, we're the sisters and those are the cousins. We're all part of the same mission. We all support each other and work together, but that's why you don't see our students in certain patches of the state. But you can see we have a lot through Central Arkansas, all up and down the Delta and Southwest Arkansas and over in the Fort Smith area. Next slide, please. Okay, this will show you average hours enrolled in 2012, 12 hours. Average? I thought 12 hours, 12 hours is considered full-time, but y'all, those nursing students, those semesters are killer. I mean, it's like the equivalent of 21 hours or something for our nursing. And we help a lot of nursing students. Average GPA last year that was 2021, was a 3.12. But here's our top 10 majors. I hate other being there because it doesn't really give you a great picture, but our biggest ones, nursing, business, education. We help a lot of future nurses, and they're doing this in the middle of the pandemic. You know how proud I was of every single one of our students that graduated with a nursing degree in the middle of a pandemic and couldn't wait to go to work. What a hero. Those people are amazing. And we help train a lot of teachers. Okay. Our graduation and retention rate is usually between 88 and 92% every year. Now, we don't look at cohorts like you came in as a freshman, where are you all 4 years later? So we probably have a different measure than most campuses, but we're looking each year. How many of them graduated? How many of them re-enrolled to continue in school? Because y'all, we're not looking 4 years down the road. We're looking each semester. Are we keeping you? Can we, what's the matter? How can we keep you in school? Tell us what you need. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I wanted to give you a little homework because what's a presentation without some homework? And I used to be a teacher, and so we love that sort of thing. All right, so I wanted to say, look at these publicity pieces, some ads that we have. I wanted to know, have any of y'all seen them anywhere? First of all, anybody? Oh, Jen's going to be so sad. Okay. So your homework is watch for these, please. This was our marketing slogan in the last year, this year, meet positive change, because that's what we want to be all about, meet positive change. And then the next slide is our billboard. And I know they're in Jonesboro. Have you seen our billboard? Oh, yeah. Oh, some people are saying yes. Okay, Jen's going to be happy again. But this, I've forgotten that I just spaced the student's name. Okay. She's just, yes. And she's gracing the cover of our annual report, which you can find on our website too. Okay. And next slide. And this is another one of our graduates. Arkansas Single Parent Scholarship Fund has helped me in ways you couldn't imagine. I could never thank you enough for helping knock down the barriers that prevent single parents from seeking college degrees. Thank you for believing in us. Our students come back to tell us again and again and again, the money was wonderful, but the fact that you believed in me, priceless. Gold. That we talk them out of quitting, that we say, no, we can help you get coats and shoes and clothes. No, we can get you a tutor. Oh, hey, hang on. Like in a conversation earlier this morning, our program director was saying that that program managers would say, well, wait a minute, you've got some W's on your transcript from last semester. Don't withdraw from a class until we talk. Because if there's tell me early so that we can prevent it. We try to work very closely with TRIO, career pathways, financial aid, the tutoring services and academic support services, and so on. If you are not active with us in your community, please reach out. I'm going to give you business cards. You can find it on the web. We are in every county. If it's not us directly, it's one of our cousins. Okay, so we can get you to the right single parent organization, because we have one thing we know very well. We're not going to do this alone. We want to move the needle on poverty in Arkansas down, and we want to move the education rate of Arkansas up. And we're going to put money in the hands of single parents to help them take care of life so that they can then focus on school. But we're not going to do that without strong community partners. And that's where you all come in, and why I'm so glad to be able to speak to this group and all of y'all online. And so anywhere you are, that we are already there. And we've been doing this for 32 years. We were trying to come up with the number. I know that we've given out over $50 million. A typical year for us is about $1.4 million to $1.8 million. Delivered in scholarships to low-income single parents. And so we find graduates of ours almost everywhere we go. It's like, so, and that are out in the workforce in the community now. And they go, oh yeah, y'all helped me get my degree. So next slide, please. All right. And so I know we have a focus group and conversation after this. I just wanted to share these other pictures of our graduates because I'm kind of like a proud mom every time somebody graduates, and our program managers are as well. So I want to leave you with this thought. If we go back to what can we do, what can you do, what should state government do, and so on. If I had a magic wand I don't, but if I had a magic wand, I would have broadband access everywhere in every home, everywhere in the state, no matter what. It's got to be a priority. It's got to be a priority. I would, had I the governor's ear, say, remember how states used to support higher education? Please go back to that. Do that again. We've got to put, and I don't just mean college, because have you hired a plumber lately or electrician? Any construction, anything. We have huge skilled trade gaps in this state. So I would have free community college done. I would have more supports for childcare and pre-K done. I would have, and yeah, the childcare part, can't go to class. They frown on you when you drag your kids in. And especially if the kids, most professors might be kind of cool with it now, but not everybody. Okay. And I would have state government focus on those huge investments and policy to support families in education. We've got, most of our students don't get a lottery scholarship because we kind of, don't we think, oh, scholarships, that cute little 18-year-old graduating from high school, that's wonderful. And a lot of money is thrown that way. What's their retention rate compared to our 92%? So who do you need to invest in? I mean, let's invest in I wasn't real serious about school. I had a lot of fun my freshman and sophomore years, but 25 and 35 trying to support a family, man, they get serious about school. So that's my thoughts on the matter, my 2 cents worth. Get what you paid for today, but that's what those policies and much bigger investment in education to not make it, oh, rich people go to med school and law school, the rest of us don't, or that's not what my family does. You see how I came from, to circle back to mom and dad, I came from, my family goes to college. Sheila came from, that's not what my people do. But now she switched the narrative. And she said, her daughters are saying, yeah, that's what our people do. So anyway, I wish we could have that 4-day retreat and really dive deep into some of these, but I thank you for having me. I hope I've shared some good ideas with you, and I'd love to answer questions about our program. And I know Shayla would as well. Why did I do that to myself? Shayla, I don't know. So anyway, thank you very much.
To one quick point of clarification, you talked a lot about college degrees, whether they're 2-year or 4-year degrees. And then you mentioned towards the end about the trade-based certifications and that sort of thing. Do y'all support those funding for those programs as well?
Yeah, good person. Yes, we do. It is a growing area for us, and we want to do a lot more of this. We've wondered why applications from trade school students were so low. You could think, well, is it because guys have a little more trouble asking for help? Is it because maybe it's mostly guys in those and they don't have custody? I mean, we have an increasing number of certificate programs, electricians, welders, construction trades, CDL graduate just recently. And they're quick, they get through fast, they get right to work, which we really like. It's not an 8 or 10 or 12 semester program. They get as much money, their money, like everybody's, is prorated. It's $1,200 if it's full-time or the equivalent full-time. We're about to go up to $1,600. And because $1,200 isn't worth what it used to be. It doesn't buy what it used to buy. And so we're about to go up to $1,600. And then if their program between classroom and the apprentice side, the skill side is equivalent to that, they get the same $1,200 or $1,600. Mm-hmm.
Great. Commissioners, I'm going to ask that if you have questions for Ms. Hill, that we'll collect those after this. I want to make sure that we get time to get onto our focus group, but can we just thank Ms. Hill once more for her presentation? Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to shift the vibe just a little bit. I'm going to come from around this table and stop having my back to so many folks. We'll give Jeremy a little time to get set up too. Dr. Shields and Jeremy, you got abandoned by a third of your your gender there. We're sorry to lose Dr. Utter, but glad he was here when he could be. Okay, so for those of you who've not participated in one of these or watched it, this is an opportunity for us to hear from y'all directly. What are your experiences for a couple of particular areas that we're going to talk about? And just a couple of ground rules so that we're all kind of operating from the same sheet of music. So first, again, because we want to be sure that we're capturing your responses the way you intend them. If you have something you'd like to say, please wait for a microphone to come to you. That will ensure that we can both transcribe it and also folks at home can hear it. And I'm going to be asking you about both real, whatever that means, and perceived barriers that you've either that you perceive that you've experienced or that you have that you know that you've experienced. And I'm going to ask that you only use I statements. So I know we can all talk about our friends and what happened to them, or maybe we serve clients or customers that have, we hear their experiences, but our goal today is to capture your experience. And so I'm just going to ask that you use I statements and talk about what you have personally experienced. That will give us a richer data set. So those are the ground rules. If you have any questions, I'll pause briefly and then we'll get started. Okay. So Jeremy is going to put up on here on the back so you can kind of be thinking ahead as well. But the topics that we're going to talk about are business, career, and finance. We're going to talk about family, childcare, and relationships. We're going to talk about your physical and mental health, your mental or your medical, any medical challenges that you've had, and your general well-being, social, spiritual, and safety and security. And then education, development, and personal growth. So whatever that means for you, whether it's education or just as you're working through your professional career, we want to capture that as well. So these are questions that we've asked in every community around the state. This is our 7th meeting that we've had. We've been in Jonesboro, we've been in, we've been here, we've been in Lake Village, Pine Bluff, we've been in Little Rock, we've been in Fayetteville. So we have been all over the state. I mentioned we're going to go to Magnolia. So we're really trying to hit different communities. So let's start with business, career, and finances. It always seems to be kind of one of the meatier ones. So as you think back over your lifetime, not just the immediate 2 years, which have been very challenging for everybody, think about it, your lifetime. What barriers have you experienced in your work, in your particular career choice, if you are in a male-dominated industry, politics, government? And then what have you experienced in your personal life and in your family life? Are there careers or jobs that you decided to pursue or not pursue because they felt more female, more friendly to women, or not because they didn't? And why? So these are just some prompt questions, and we're going to kick it off. Who'd like to go first? I'm like Tamika. I am not afraid to call a sister out. I like it better if you want to share it, though. Girl, stop. Miss Tabor, I know you are just dying to tell me something. Tell me something. First of all, can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself? Right behind you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Allie Tabor. I am the program director at KLEK 102.5 FM. It's a nonprofit. I am very familiar with Ms. Shayla, as we're on the Community Benefits Committee together for the Chamber of Commerce. Radio isn't necessarily something that people think of as female-led and female-driven, and even in my office, I'm the only female there. There are several female volunteers, but I am the only one that is on staff. it's somewhat difficult at times. I feel like a lot of times I'm expected to kind of housekeep per se. And I'll be honest with you, I'm just not that person. I do feel like it gives me a chance to challenge myself because I know for a fact I'm not that kind of person, but it does give me a chance to challenge myself, step out of my comfort zone a little bit. So in a way, it's been somewhat beneficial for me, but I know that that is not everyone else's experience.
What drew you to radio? What drew you to radio in the first place?
When I was a little girl, I used to listen to a station in Memphis called K97. And I would listen to the early morning team with Mike Evans, and I loved it. And I was like, I want to do that. I just want to be on the radio having fun and talking. And there was, now that I think about it, there was just like one female on that show as well. So,
And are you having fun in the mornings in your show?
I am having fun in the early afternoon. In the morning, I'm still trying to wake up.
What's your show so we'll know to listen to it in the future?
Okay. Well, I originally hosted an evening show called Soul Stations. Now, my coworker and I, we have what we call the No Name Show, where we basically just get on the air for 5 to 10 minutes and just talk about stuff going on around the station and whatever random things pop into his mind on that day. So if you guys ever listen to KLEK 102.5 FM, listen for us. We usually come on around 10:30, 11:30 sometimes. And Tuesdays at 3:30 because we're trying to constantly give stuff away to get engagement up from the community.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. So male-dominated industry, you're pushing every day, not just against a male-dominated industry, but then just perceptions, maybe societal pressure, perceptions of women in general, not just in the workplace, but maybe what our families expect of us to take care of each other, to take care of them. Who takes care of you?
God. That's God and my husband. I do have a wonderful husband. He's very supportive. When things are going on at the station, he's usually the first person I call if I need help because I know that he'll be there for me. So it's a blessing. And again, I know that not everybody has that. So I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for being brave and stepping out.
Next time I'm going to be a little bit better at hiding my name tag.
Yeah. You got to not make eye contact. That's the trick. Who else? Who else works in a male-dominated industry here? Oh, go ahead. Yes.
Hello. My name is Imani Williams. I am a weekend anchor and reporter at KAIT. I would say I've been in news for about 3 years now. I would say the biggest barrier that I had personally, and sometimes I continue to deal with it, is me being an African-American woman in an industry that is usually, when you turn on the TV to the news, you usually see either a white male or a white female. So there was a barrier for, do you really want to see me on TV? Do you want me to give you your news? And a lot of times when I was applying for jobs and looking for jobs, that was something that one of my mentors told me, that I might not be getting picked because they're not looking for an African-American woman right now. That's not the brand that they want to show. So I feel like that was the biggest barrier. And then once you get into the news business, it's like, okay, how should I wear my hair? How should I talk? Because I'm from the South. We all from the South. So you see, got a little country in me a little bit. So I had to make sure that I'm talking in a way that is acceptable on that type of platform, and wearing my hair, which we've gotten further from, making sure that your hair has to be straight or anything like that. But those were just a few things that I still kind of deal with today, and barriers that I had before coming into this field.
You talked about sort of natural hair and the way there's starting to be more, maybe acceptance is not the right word, but generally speaking. So did you experience that directly? Did you experience comments directly about your appearance, or was that something that just you had sort of ingested internally?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like from the beginning, I just had that in my head, like, if I wear my hair curly natural, it's not going to be accepted because I never saw that really on TV. So I'm just like, they're not going to like that. Then once you get into it, I did start to wear my hair more curly, more natural. And it seemed as if, everything was okay. Nobody really said too much. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. But, you sometimes you do have like this sly comments and stuff like that. But I don't think it was as bad as I perceived it to be in the first place. Yeah.
Thank you. That's, and so we've heard from two folks in the media. I know we have other media folks in the room. I don't want to cut anything off, but what about other industries, male or female dominated? Yes, Ms. Wright.
Dr. Shields is looking around because I'm the quiet person.
Peer
I don't know
pressure.
why everybody's laughing. But I want to thank our speaker. It brought back a lot of memories. My mother was the first single parent director in St. Francis County, Forest City. And so from those early days, Ralph Nesson, so it goes way back. But for me, growing up in Forest City, we were poor. My mother worked as a domestic. And so it was always a challenge. I started off at AM&N College, got sick, had to come home. By my mother working, we only had $50 a week for 4 of us, plus my dad, because he was a disabled veteran. And so I learned the hard way of trying to better myself, help my mother, my parents. And it was hard. And a lot of people haven't said this, but there were barriers. I was the first Black operator in St. Francis County in Forest City. Why? Because the white guy at the bank said, you need to come to work at the bank, but they pay more money at the telephone company. So he sent me there. I had to take the test twice because they say I didn't pass it the first time. I was the only Black employee for 2 years. Then they hired another young Black lady. We were there together for another 3 years. So racism is prominent in the Delta and in these small communities. But so I started going to what I think is important in all of our communities, a community college. That really helped motivate me. Took me a little while because, again, I was a single parent, had 4 children. I had to work, but I wanted to, better myself. So I finally got my degree from East Arkansas Community College, and I'm proud of that because there were instructors there who wanted to see me become who I am, and I them. And then I came to Arkansas State by way of Dr. Bill Stroud, who I was his student. And he called me one day and he said, well, I want you to know they're going to call you to ask you about teaching at Arkansas State. And I just want you to know, you didn't volunteer, I volunteered you. So 26 years later, I'm still here. And I have tried to give back. I was a director. I built 68 houses in Forest City, and I'm proud of that. The very first home that I built was for a single mother of 1. She had a 5-year-old. The bank wouldn't finance her. Rural development wouldn't finance her. Not that she did not have the income or credit, but she was considered working poor. So I helped her to get her house, and I'm proud to say both of her children have graduated from Arkansas State. One is working here now, Kyle Smith, but his mother, because she persevered and said, I'm single, but I want to do better. I want to make a difference. So for me, I've tried to give back based on my mother with the single parent scholarship. And now, even here at A-State, I still work in Delta communities, trying to make a difference. And I think it's important to understand that a lot of times it's not that we don't want to do, but again, racism plays a key part. And it's still prevalent today. I'm sorry to say, hadn't gone away. Some of my students say, we don't have that anymore. Yes, you do. But again, remember where you come from and remember somebody helped you to get where you are and give back. And that's all I want to say.
Well, it's a great point that we hear about in so many of these meetings, but it also lends me to the next question, which is sort of who's had, you talked about advocacy and mentorship that you experience and how you're giving back through further mentorship. So if you have a mentor, if you feel like you've had a mentor in your life, were they male, female? And who would like to share that story? If you've had multiple, who'd like to share the story and experiences of mentorship? Ms. Robinson.
I'm a first generation college student and graduated ASU in 2017. And I definitely would not have been able to do that without mentors, male and female. And that was from Student Support Services here at Arkansas State. At the time, it was Mr. Gerard Lockhart. I think it was Erin Bass and Carlisa Gilmore. Again, I was a single parent. And I don't think if it wasn't for them, I definitely wouldn't have crossed that stage. So.
Is there a particular experience that sticks out in your mind that was just a very difficult and one of them helped you pull through or gave you the skills that you needed to pull through it?
Well, honestly, I didn't have a lot of support from family. So they were like family for me. So yeah, they were.
From like an emotional standpoint.
Exactly, yes. And, you know, I was offered free tutoring, you know, advice on which classes to take it, just whatever I needed, they were there for me. So, and I appreciate it to this day. And I'm actually back at ASU working in that same department as an admin assistant and getting ready to go to
I love that
next
story.
year. So.
I love both of those stories. That's so wonderful. I love that. Yes. Dr. Moore.
Thank you. Yvette Allen Moore, currently serving as Assistant Dean, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion at NYT Com at A-State. So when we talk about mentorship, two stories stick out for me. I think about as an undergrad, well, let me start with this. I have mentors of all backgrounds, et cetera, but most of the mentors I have identify as Black women. And it sticks out to me, two stories. One, when I was an undergrad, where I was interviewing for something and there was kind of chatter about things I needed to improve on, but the only person that came to me and told me that and helped me develop was a Black woman. And I think part of that was her seeing a little bit of her in me, or just recognizing that even though you're not where you're going to be, I want to help you, right? And so a lot of that has impacted me and how I mentor students, because a lot of those in my younger years were not even necessarily me seeking out mentorship because I didn't really necessarily know what that was, but it was people who were like, I want to help develop you. And I've tried to keep that mindset as well, because you might see someone is like, you know what, they're just kind of going through life. They might just need a mentor. They don't know what that is. They don't realize what that is. And another one was when I was a little older, very similar situation. I was interviewing for a job and they just had some tips for me on how to do better kind of in your interviews. And again, it was one of those situations where there was chatter from a lot of people, oh, they this, that, the other, but the only person who would pull me to the side and help mentor me were Black women.
That's really powerful. And so it doesn't sound like you knew what that chatter was even going on. Just there was someone who was brave enough to stand up and took enough investment in you to say, here's what I'm hearing and why you need to know what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, I think it was the things that they shared, right? They didn't share names, but they say, hey, consider this, that people might have this vision of you or think this of you, right? Or these are things you need to work on. And you could tell from that conversation, these were things that people shared with them in another room. And they just wanted me to know, because you can't do better if you don't know, right? And so when it comes to mentorship, those have been some of my experiences.
Yeah, that's really great. Anybody have an experience where they actually, so we've heard of structured mentorship, we've heard of folks maybe sort of organically developing. Anyone have any experiences? Oh, Dr. McNamee. Oh,
So my mentors in this room.
Yep. That was strong.
I know, but you knew it was coming. So I'm Dr. Heather McNamee. I'm an assistant professor here at Arkansas State University. So my upbringing was, I was actually raised by my grandparents. And I know that a lot of Arkansas kids are raised by their grandparents. And so great
great upbringing in terms of love and support, but they struggled in terms of economic support, and neither one of them had even graduated from high school. And so in terms of talking about college, that was not something that they could really do. So I walked onto this campus at Arkansas State University as a first generation college student in the fall of 2004. And the only way that I sit here as Dr. Heather McNamee, Assistant Professor of History, is because of amazing teachers who it goes beyond content knowledge, right? It's not just about content knowledge. That's actually a really small part of what a lot of folks in higher ed end up doing. It's a result of folks like Dr. Sharice Jones Branch, who took me aside and said, you really have a voice. What you say matters. And, I remember one conversation in particular, I was so worried about like going to conferences and stuff because of my Southern accent, right? I can't hide it. It's just part of who I am. And Dr. Jones Branch said, dialect does not denote intellect. And I tell that to my students now too. And so, good teachers, content knowledge is just a very small part of that. It's really that heart for students and being committed to their growth. And that's what I try to do now for my advisees and my students too. So.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Does anybody have any experience where they maybe wanted a mentor and couldn't find one? Or, okay, that head went up quickly. Dr. Williams.
So a very interesting kind of story. I was new on faculty in the department where I was. I've been a high school teacher and I've become an instructor. So the instructor world, the college world, I know is totally different from, typical secondary ed. The responsibilities are different. Here's the thing that blew me away was that they didn't have any special books that showed you lesson plans and stuff like that. I was thrown in like trial by fire. Like someone handed me 6 textbooks and said, pick one and then let this be what you use to design your course. All of that, none of that related to anything I learned in a BSE program. So anyway, first faculty meeting, they asked if anybody had any questions. I didn't know you're not supposed to ask questions at faculty meetings. And I said, well, I'm new here and I'd really like I'm looking for a mentor, someone to help me. Total radio silence, like not a word. And it was just a very alienating experience, but it taught me right away, some things I would need to learn. And then I think someone might have felt uncomfortable later. And then they told me after the meeting, if you want me to mentor you, I will. I also learned that they didn't have a process in place for mentoring. And so for them, what I was requesting probably sounded like additional responsibility and not an opportunity to bond and create a collegial relationship. But to make that even more bizarre, the person who did come to me was one of the people who had said to me prior, I think you'd make a good professor. You ought to think about grad school. So the mentoring was limited. I don't understand why that is, why the comfort level ended at a certain point. But what I've done in response to that, so you all won't cry about me later, is that I networked well with people who could help me. And I learned to be independent and learn how to, I was independent anyway, but just learn how to function and ask questions of people who would know. People who were comfortable with my asking, like Heather McNamee, some of whom are in this room. And I could just say, hey, this is what I'm experiencing. What does this mean? And then get the guidance that way. So.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent connection between what mentorship looks like and then what networking looks like within our communities and our professional engagement. And I want to kind of go there now a little bit too, and just, Ruth Ann's talking about if you don't if you don't see modeled what it looks like to go to college or to be in a family that really values that. But in other areas too, I don't know everybody's background. So do we have any small business owners or entrepreneurs in here? Yes. I knew I was going to get you in one of these questions.
Hello, my name is Nora Busy-Hay. I am the Assistant Director of Multicultural Affairs here at Arkansas State University. I started a small business back in 2018, the first head wrap and scarf company in the state of Arkansas to empower women and girls around the world. And so every 3 scarves purchased, 1 is donated to a refugee overseas. And so what was the question?
Well, so talk a little bit about your experience in building your business, and if you needed to finance it, how you financed it. What were those experiences like?
For me, so I grew up here in Jonesboro, but primarily my years were in Little Rock because that's where my alma mater is. But my business model, I had a vision I wanted to empower women and girls around the world, and I was trying to figure out how I can do that. I started wearing the hijab, the scarf around my head in 2016. And when I started wearing that, I never felt more empowered until I wore it. I never felt more myself. And so I said, what way can I bring women and girls together? And I said, well, let's do a scarf, right? Women around the world, they wear scarves in all different ways, around their shoulders, around their waists. But bringing that business model, I had the idea trying to, hone it in. And so I actually went to the business center here at Arkansas State University, where they helped me, Kelly Lessenby, when she was working there, helped me really model, do the research to figure it out. Unfortunately, a lot were not interested, just looking at the region that we live in. And so they automatically think scarf, they think something foreign. So it was really, really hard finding people who understood the mission and the vision behind it and the purpose of it. But thankfully, I was a part of the first cohort through the Arkansas Women's Foundation in Winter Rock called Momentum. And so that program, I was one of the first cohorts, and that program really allowed that foundation to build upon being a minority small business. And because of them, they were able to push me in order to do great work. I think what really motivated me through that was individuals who were minorities or identified in different minority groups really saw the impact that could make. And they really, really pushed that mentorship in business to be able to be something great. And so because of their guidance, I was able to host a gala at the Clinton Library and make such an impact with refugees around the world. So just really figuring out how to make the business marketable for everyone and allow people to feel that story and kind of tailoring the narrative of scarves with a cause. With a global cause. And when you have a story, people feel it. And when people feel it, they like to be a part of it. So,
and what's the name of your organization?
Nowaraco, Nowaraco.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else have any experiences where yes. Dr. Yu. Oh, let's go to Ms. Cunningham first, then we'll go over.
Good afternoon. My name is Shanquetta Cunningham. I started Caris Group Consulting nearly 7 years ago, working with nonprofits, working to increase income, impact, and influence through their social causes. So as an entrepreneur, as a Black woman entrepreneur, may I have the point of privilege to kind of combine all of these statements because this will be my first and last time speaking.
You're welcome to do so.
One of the things that I would encourage, I am very action oriented. I love conversations and I love this time. But I think since we're all here, I would just like to put before you the word crisis, because we notice that in our state and our federal government, when we issue a crisis, there is an immediate response. There's an immediate response and a call to action to support Black women entrepreneurs, which are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the nation and in this state. However, as identified on the federal level and in the state level, there are no support systems built to target, to fund, to decrease those barriers for Black women entrepreneurs. In 2018, I started Over a Cup, which is a nonprofit, the only nonprofit dedicated to Black women entrepreneurs in the state of Arkansas. And again, I put before you crisis because until we start actually having these conversations are good, but now putting your money where your mouth is, giving out loans. COVID, the women in my group, we were going to our own banking institutions and were not even qualified to get PPP funding. Had barriers to the EIDL loan processes.
And so how was that expressed to you when you and your, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
this is
you're
very,
fine.
this is very important to the work we're doing. So when you or your cohort mates were going in looking for loans, what was the reasons you were given for not being qualified for PPP?
We don't have the time for that. So let me say this. No, but but it's very simplified. Going back to what Miss Peggy said, racism is just a key barrier about the risk-averse businesses, especially if you have certain titles like legacy or group or holdings behind your company. Those created barriers. Like I said, just another conversation to have. Those were different aspects, but also I work with women where we're talking about P&L statements where we didn't even have spreadsheets, but we were making money, right? And so all of these things are essential when we're talking about economic success and women mobility. We cannot have that conversation without capital access and money. And I'm so grateful for the conversations that are centered around so much, but money, the Bible is true. Money, yes, it could be the root, of evil and all things, but it also answereth all things, right? So I would just like to say that if I could put anything before the commission in the spirit of Miss Ruth, that we have to be more intentional in setting aside funding. But when we do that and see the crisis in it, I think we can expedite the process.
Yeah. And just to give you confidence, we're hearing this at almost every meeting, just the access to capital for women-owned businesses, not only because of just the myriad of barriers that we face in starting businesses, but also because maybe the men that are sitting on the board don't understand why scarves are important to women, why wedding planning is important to women. These are businesses that are traditionally viewed as maybe female centric or women centric. And so how do we change that as well? So I want to give you confidence. We are hearing that. I expect that's going to be a big part of our report. So thank you for that. Dr. Yu.
Thank you. So I just heard quite a few fortunate women here. They had great mentors in their life, in their career. I was wondering, as I was listening to those leadership, talks, they were talking about the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. So the difference, a mentor telling you should be more assertive, you should be more visionary, you should be more visible, and but the sponsor really gave you the opportunity. They're making a testimony saying, this woman deserves a leadership position. I think she will do great for this leadership position. So I was just thinking about my own career. I came across two women. They really made a difference in terms of my career. They were at a much higher position than I was. So, for example, I was twice get the award of a presidential excellence. So those women put the application materials together. They wrote recommendation letters for me. They told the leadership people that I deserve to be in, like a director level position. So I was wondering, as we're talking about mentors, sometimes people get women get mentored a lot, but they didn't get sponsored as much as some of the men in workforce.
So you mentioned you had some sponsors who were helping you with,
Right.
putting you forward for nomination. So what does that mean in how you mentor or sponsor students or others who you come across in your professional path? Has that changed how you approach your engagement with others?
Definitely. So I would, so for example, the people who are reporting to me, and I would also try to look out for them, whether, like a leverage, if I see a leadership position, whether it's within my office or somewhere else on the campus. So I think if you have somebody who is willing to do a testimonial for you, you deserve the position, you have the leadership skills, you have the right kind of experience, I think that will mean a lot for me. So that will be playing more of a sponsor. They think you deserve a position at the table, things like that. And sometimes women make all kinds of changes, improvements, enhance, but they do not necessarily get to the next level they would like to be.
Yeah, thank you for that. Excellent contract. I have lots of words. Never mind. Not enough coffee yet today. Hi, can you
Hi,
tell
my
us
name
your
is
name?
Gina Gomez.
Great,
I'm
wonderful.
the director of the Hispanic Center in Jonesboro. I think that something that I have struggled with is working in the nonprofit sector. Is hard to raise funds, but even harder when you are representing a Latino nonprofit organization. For some reason, people have the idea and they make the assumption that you are Hispanic, you are coming here to clean houses or work in construction. So never thinking about professional people that value education and that is hoping to improve their level of education or things like that. So I feel like since I started working in the nonprofit sector and really since I moved to this country, I feel that I am educating people every single day. That's something that I never lived with before back in Colombia, in my country. And I'm so used to that I do it all the time. When thinking about mentors, I have had great mentors and I've been blessed with all the opportunities that this country has offered to me. But I have never found a mentor that looks like me. And I think that that's the situation of many of the Hispanic professionals or not professionals in this area specifically. Because I mean, you just don't find it. It's like I can be the mentor for many kids, and I think that is great. But when looking for somebody that will understand how I feel as an immigrant in this country, it's really hard to find that. Also, we have a really well-established nonprofit organization. But when we think about that, I think that Jonesboro is very lucky to have that when you think that this is one of the most conservative areas in the entire state and one of the conservative states. So this is not Florida, this is not Texas. And having this organization here, but we don't have any other organization in the state to look at because we are the largest nonprofit and established that we have in the state. So we have always to go out to find opportunities for the Hispanic community, to find new programs, to get information. The location where we are, I mean, being honest, not all the information comes to Northeast Arkansas. Mm-hmm. And especially when working with the Hispanic community, you have to go to Little Rock, you have to go to Northwest Arkansas. But guess what? We don't have Walmart, we don't have Tyson, we don't have all the resources that Northwest Arkansas has. So it's really difficult to get funds to provide services and programs for the Hispanic community in this area. So my entire time, I've been working for the Hispanic Center for 18 years. And as you can see, I'm just passionate about that because otherwise I wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. My family still asks, what are you doing in Jonesboro, Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere? Well, I just love what I do. That's the only reason that keeps me here. But it still is hard and trying to find those leaders that are coming after because I mean, you feel you are not going to be here all the time, but it's not easy to build that leadership in our community. Mm-hmm. So thinking all the time, okay, who is going to take these places? We need a succession plan and things like that. That's something that you have to live, thinking about. Talking about like COVID, and I agree with the difficulty of getting funds for some other nonprofits as well. COVID, however, brought a lot of challenges. And I think that you are all aware that the Hispanic community was hit pretty hard by COVID, but it brought opportunities that we never thought that would bring. So
we'll talk about those.
Opportunities, and not necessarily from Arkansas, unfortunately, but with past funders that we have working in small projects, they contacted us because they knew the work that we were doing in Jonesboro, Arkansas. So we were able to bring funding that I would have never expected to bring, to start new programs, to create to provide service all around Northeast Arkansas, even statewide services. Just funding, because there was a lot of funding for minorities, and that's the reality. There were a lot of opportunities for minorities through COVID. So I really appreciate it. We say all the negatives, we have to say the positives too, and that was a good time for us.
But what you're identifying, I mean, it's challenging to get funding. It's challenging to get started. It's challenging to overcome barriers. And then when you become a leader in the community, serving your community in a way, it doesn't get easier, right?
No.
And those mentorships and those networks they remain equally as important for those who are in leadership positions than not. We never have enough time for these conversations, but I do want to encourage a couple of things.
One more.
Of course.
Oh,
Hi,
hi.
I'm Rachel Guerin. I'm the executive director for the United Way of Northeast Arkansas. First of all, the powerhouses of women in this room, it's just an honor to be in here with all of you. I know the incredible work that you do across the community and the state, and just appreciative of that to even be here. Second of all, I wanted to just make a few I statements. So for the business sector, I am sure several of you feel this way, but I constantly feel like I have to prove that I am capable to do things. In my leadership role, I've always had to prove that I'm very capable of making very large decisions and dealing with very large sums of money. I am absolutely capable to do that. And I feel like I have to constantly say that and prove that. As far as family goes and family planning and childcare, one thing that I was faced with, unfortunately, and fortunately, with nonprofit work, we never slow down, right? Constant events, constant meetings. And I was asked very early on, not with United Way, but in a previous role, to plan my pregnancies around fundraising events. So I think that
How'd that work for you? Did you actually accomplish that?
No, I did not. I did not accomplish that. But I just think it's important to say that even in this day and age, that is still happening. And, my little boy is the most important thing to me, and I love my job and I devote a lot of my life to it. But the fact that was done, I mean, obviously that would be never said to a man. So I just wanted to make a few I statements.
Thank you for that. Well, and you went kind of where I wanted to go to wrap this up. And that is, every one of you in this room is here because you're a leader in the community. And we recognize that. I know you look around the room at your peers and you recognize that too. But think about all the women that are not in this room and how you can go back and provide mentorship and networking and sponsorship to those women. In my perfect vision of these meetings, everyone would be able to bring 2 to 3 friends or family members or clients that you may not amongst this cohort not know, but that is vetted and that you personally know and can bring that perspective to it as well. So one of the ways that we're getting to that is through an online survey that we're doing. It's almost exactly these same questions. And we're at women.arkansas.gov. That's women.arkansas.gov, women.arkansas.gov. I heard in media 3 times, right? Don't even listen to me. So women.arkansas.gov, you just take the survey button and it's anonymous. All you have to do is put what your zip code is, just so we can kind of capture that you are in fact from Arkansas. And so there's questions in there and you can do free form answers on barriers that you've experienced. And so I want to encourage you to do that. I want to encourage you to encourage others to do that. And you can just drop the link to them via email and let them take the survey. If you get a phone call, because Dr. Shields, in his capacity as commissioner, has helped us put this survey together. And so they'll be running that, as Dr. Jones Branch mentioned, in a couple of days. And so if you get a phone call, please do take the time to spend with the questioner about what your experiences are, because that's our more scientific polling apparatus that we're going to use. I want to thank Dr. Jones Branch, Chancellor. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today. I want to thank all of you for being here. For those of you especially that shared your stories, thank you for being brave. If I didn't get to you and you have a story to share, please feel free to contact me, share it on the website, let us know how we can best support you. I mentioned the report is due December 1st to the governor and the legislature. Dr. Jones Branch mentioned we're going to be done before Thanksgiving because nobody wants to work over the holidays. So we're gonna make sure that that's done in a timely fashion, and we're going to make sure that it's something that you all can be proud of. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.